Oh, and welcome to Best for the World and for this year's theme, intentional engagement, and this specific session and concept called local food system. My name is Stella Nordahl, and together with Chris, I host this concept of local food system. We also have a guest here today, and that's Casey Miller from Argus Farm Stop. And Chris, shall we talk a little bit before we invite Casey into the conversation about what is your interest, Chris, in local food systems, and why do you believe it's a good thing to focus on and to maybe intentionally engage in?
Well, there's a lot of things to focus on, but I think there is a huge problem right now, and with the whole food system all around the world. What I believe and think is that you should focus more on your own in the local, as far as that could be. But you start from like ripples in the water. So start where you at and try to work from there and try to spread your knowledge with others, just like actually the one guest we're gonna have here. So yeah, that's my first thing to say about this. It's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of problems and opportunities and possibilities to do.
And that's the reason also to why you met Casey, I understand. And maybe we should invite you right now to the conversation, Casey. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we're in Sweden, and you're in on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Can you tell us a little bit more about where you are situated right now, and
Sure.
and we can start with that.
Okay. Yes. So I'm located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the United States. Michigan is sort of central north, sort of United States, near the Great Lakes,
Mm.
actually in the middle of all the Great Lakes.
I haven't been there, but you have been to Sweden, and that was when you met, I guess. I'm guessing, so maybe you should tell us a little bit about how you met and why.
Yeah, that's a guess, but actually it's kind of funny because at that point, I think it was last fall, I heard from my colleague Joel that he heard on a podcast about this Argus farm stop, and it was a really interesting model, and we wanted to explore more. So that's what we did, and we saw that they had courses. So I contacted Casey. Well, I got in touch with Casey rather, and so it happened. She was in Sweden at the same time. So nothing really about her being in Sweden, but it was just a coincidence that she was in Sweden at the same time we started to talk.
Yeah.
And have you been here for more than once, Casey, or is it?
No, I've only been to Sweden once. I would love to come back. I was there for maybe a little less than a month last fall. My husband was traveling for work, and he has a colleague in Uppsala, so that we spent the time there, and it was wonderful. I'd love to come back. And kind of alluding to what Chris was saying, the food systems are broken all over the world, and so after I started talking with him and his group, it was evident that many of the same challenges that we see here in our local food systems are the same that you're seeing in Sweden, that are same being seen all around the world. So there's definitely a collective problem sharing, collective troubleshooting, I guess, that can happen across these communities. So I would love to come back to Sweden for many reasons, some of them personal, but I want to keep track of what Chris and his group are doing. I told them I would happily come back and work and help them. They can just pay me in salty licorice. I'd be happy.
Mm. And that's one of the reasons to why we have this concept and this session, and that is not only to find common problems, but maybe also find common maybe solutions or common principles or and have a dialogue not only with you, Casey, but also with various concepts around the world for a local food system. And because you're engaged in one of them, Argus Farm Stop, maybe we should start with just tell us a little bit about it so we can have a conversation around it. You know
Sure.
a lot, and maybe Chris knows a little bit, but I'm totally newbie on Argus FarmStop.
Sure, I'll give a very brief overview and we can go into more detail in the areas that you want to explore. So Argus FarmStop is here in Ann Arbor, where I am located. We opened about 10 years ago. So in August of 2014, we opened our first location. Argus, so I guess what a FarmStop is that we're a retailer of local food. Everything in our store is local, most of it grown within a short drive of our store. And what makes us different than other retailers that are selling local food is that we sell on consignment. And so that word, there are different words for that, but basically the farmers own the produce. The farmers bring their products to our store, we receive it, we sell it for them. We don't buy it from them. We're just kind of stewards for their products. We sell their products in our store. And then the percentage of the sales that go back to the farmer is 70%. So here in the United States, and I think this is somewhat similar globally, the average, if a food that is sold in a traditional grocery store model, only about 15 cents of that dollar, 15% of the sale goes back to the farmer. For us, we're giving 70% back to the farmer. And so we pay that directly back to the farmer every 2 weeks. We cut checks for our producers. And so we just keep the 30% just as overhead to essentially pay our staff, keep the lights on, that sort of thing. So we are in some ways like a farmer's market in that the sale of the produce is it's directly linking the producer with the consumer. So we aren't a traditional middleman. We're not a wholesaler. We're not a warehouse. We are just providing the infrastructure for that sale to happen between the farmer and the producer, or farmer and the consumer. And the farmers can drop off and they go back to their farm and farm. They don't have to stay here and staff and spend their time selling. They can spend their time working on their farm.
So the store is hosted by you, more or less, and it's an open store for consumers, or is it also for small companies, restaurants and so on, or is it more a private consumer market?
So it's a little bit of both. So most of our sales are directly to consumers, to private, to individuals. But we do have operations that connect those farmers' goods with restaurants. We call that a hub operation, kind of like a food hub. I know you have food hubs as well, but we do have part of our operation as a food hub. Again, it's the same sort of consignment model where we are just providing the connection between the restaurants that want the local produce with the farmer. And then we just keep 30% of that transaction just essentially for our services. So that's a part that has grown substantially over the years. We have a few really great restaurants in the area that are true farm to table. Most of their things are sourced locally. So we have a lot of support there. We also provide, this is sort of new for us, we are providing some local food to some of our schools here in Ann Arbor. The city schools are buying local food from us. Not all of the city schools so far. It's sort of a pilot program. So that's another avenue for us as well.
Did I understand you right? You didn't right now deliver to schools and so on, but that was on.
We just began. It's not all schools in the city, but some of the city schools are buying from us.
Yeah, and there's a procurement process, I guess, from the municipality and so on, if you want to sell to a school, right?
Yeah.
Super interesting. I'm thinking of, yes, and in this consignment model, the stock itself, who owns that? Is that the farmer, so they also have the risk for it's not being sold, or do you share that risk, or no? You do this the market and the selling.
So in the extent that there is risk, it is on the farmer because they own the goods. I will say that the reason this has worked so well for us over the last 10 years is because we have established and work very hard every day to maintain the trust of our producers. They trust us that when they drop off their goods to us, we will take good care of it. We will display it and, mist it so it looks nice and healthy. And by and large, the producers or the customers are buying it before it goes bad. So we have very, very little food waste, and therefore there's not a lot of risk to the producer. We've gotten better at that over the years of knowing we review our sales reports, so we kind of know if we're talking to a farmer, we kind of know how much lettuce in a week we can sell. And so we tell them what we think we can sell and they bring that amount. If they choose to bring more, we will accept it. But if we don't sell all of everything they bring, then technically that risk would be on the farmer. But there's very little food waste.
I'm thinking, Chris, you have seen because we have in Sweden also various systems. So I'm thinking here of yes, if you have any questions, Chris, so I don't take all the space because my head is now spinning. First of all, I'm thinking of what is the kind of organization form that you use for the Argus farm stop? Is it what kind of an organization is it?
Yeah, so I'll tell you our terminology and ask me if you don't understand, because I don't know how this translates, but we are a privately held organization. We are technically a for-profit, but we are a low-profit business. Small businesses here that are for-profit are usually considered LLCs, limited liability companies. We are something called an L3C. That's something that exists here in the state of Michigan, and a few other states have it as well. And so that is a for-profit small company who is a limited, like our limited, having limited profits is built into our business model. And we have a mission. And so we have to have that mission in part of our articles of incorporation, which we do. Our mission is simply to grow the local food economy. It's that simple. And we hold that mission very dear. It drives all of our decision making. And we are limited in our profit as that model. I will say that, no one is making lots of money off of local food anywhere. It just isn't the way it works. But our aim is to have a 1% to 2% margin at the end of the year of profit, just to keep money in the bank in case something big breaks. But yeah, we're not making a lot of money on this. We're really just trying to break even to stay open.
And when it's privately held, is it then shares, or how does it work? Is it one owner or many owners, and how does?
Yeah, so our farm stop is two. It was started by two individuals together, so it's just held by those two people. There are other farm stops around the country, some of whom are nonprofits. So they're nonprofit organizations where they have a board that drives their decisions. Others are collectives or collaboratives where there are multiple owners that share collective decision making. So there's different ways to do it. I think the type of entity, there are pros and cons to all of the different ways to form it, but it's not tied to necessarily one of those. You can have success and have the same consignment model under different entities.
So I'm also just thinking of your role into this. You're not one of the owners, or?
I'm not.
No, so you're employed by the farm stop, the Argus.
Yes. Correct.
And I guess that is more than you. It sounds like it's quite a big organization, but that's just
it is. Yeah, it has grown. So we started in 2014. We had one location and we had, I don't know, 15 employees, maybe. I'm not even sure we had that many. And most of them were part-time. We've now expanded. So we have 3 different locations in Ann Arbor. I don't know how much detail to get into, but 2 of them are markets. One is a cafe that sort of is linked to one of the markets. So we have 3, but it's all the same business. It's one business. It's 3 locations, one business. They're not run individually. And amongst those, altogether, those 3 locations, we have 70 employees. Again, most of them are part-time. We have about 25-ish full-time employees.
I'm also thinking of, when you mentioned cafes and so on, restaurants. Have you had the dialogue of also having a restaurant? I don't know exactly what you sell. Is it only crops, or is it vegetables, or is it also like meat and honey?
It is anything our local food shed can produce. So we try really hard to offer the biggest selection that we can, both to support all of our local producers, but then also the more things we offer, the more easy and attractive it is for a customer to come in and shop with us. So our goal is for a customer to come to us first, buy everything they possibly can from us, and then the things we can't sell, then they can go to the traditional grocery store or the other retailers to buy those things. So like, we're never going to have bananas, for example. But we're a full service, essentially grocery store. We have full array of produce. We have meat, dairy, eggs, dry goods, cereals, jams, syrups, I don't even know, coffee, like all sorts of things. So we have a full array of products, all of which are locally produced.
But also chilled products. Then you have
What is it?
chilled. You have like milk and
Oh,
dairies.
mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
There, yeah. Milk, cheese, yogurt, butter, etc.
I'm just thinking of the examples we have seen in Sweden, Chris. Have you seen that broad spectrum of? I mean,
Yeah, the closest thing that we have to is the thing. The store might be, if you think about like a lanthandel in Sweden, but
it's like a small grocery store for KC.
Yeah, the layout is similar to like a lanthandel. It's a familiar family feeling that you get when you're getting. But the difference there is the focus on the producers, the farmers and the producers, which I feel is the most important thing in all of what Argus does, and what I believe is one of the best way you can do about the food system to actually help and the producers, those who makes the food for us. So the connection between the producers and Argus is something that I think all the stores should focus on to. As a producer myself, I feel that the stores that I bring my goods to, the ones that I have the closest contact with, is the best results from us and for them. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I was
One
thinking,
of the things we see here that is a challenge for there are other retailers that, and including traditional grocery stores that want to sell local food because there's a consumer demand for local food. But it is difficult for the traditional grocery model to have, let me step back for a second. So our model is very labor intensive. We have weekly, daily, we have very frequent conversations with all of our producers, and we have over 200 of them. So it is a labor intensive process. We know what farmers have in their fields, when it might be ready, what we're going to expect in 2 weeks. It's a lot of conversation, and a traditional retailer can't have those conversations. They're used to opening a catalog and knowing, just checking the boxes on a sheet what they want. And so for a traditional grocery store to have somebody on staff who can have all those individual conversations is just very cost prohibitive for them. So that's a barrier for many retailers here.
Yeah, and you also give the information to the producers, like, so they makes it easier to not overproduce or underproduce a product, which is very important in these times, that we don't waste or can't deliver enough because we don't know, because we don't have that contact with our wholesalers, which you do at Argus. So I think it's a very important thing that they're doing, working with the producers more than that the producer working for the stores.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Definitely. We definitely feel like we are here to support the farmers and do what they need us to do versus the other way around.
Exactly.
I'm thinking of when we talk about local food systems, Chris and Casey. What do we mean with local? What have you? I mean, you must have had some thoughts, because when a farmer wants to join, is the locality? Yeah, I guess it's important, but how local is local? Is that an issue, or is it something you have found ways to handle?
Yeah, no, that's a question we get a lot. And I think every farm stop or every entity needs to define local however they need to define it. And it will look different for each community based on what they have available in their area. So for us, when a producer approaches us and wants to sell with us, they have to be able to deliver to us regularly enough to keep their item in stock. So if they sell something that's selling rapidly, they need to be able to come in probably at least once, if not twice a week, to keep our shelves stocked. And transportation is a huge cost and a huge barrier for many producers. So they need to be close enough to make that happen. We don't have a radius. We don't say that you have to be within an X number of miles to sell with us. But I will say that we do happen to be located in a very agriculturally rich, not just state, but then like even a county, our county within our state is also very agriculturally rich. So
Most
we
of
have
the
a time
farmers
sourcing
are,
very closely to us.
yes,
I'm sorry.
sorry. So most of the farmers you have are in your county.
Most of them are, not all of them, but most of them. There are things like, I don't know, turkey, for example, is a meat that we definitely want to carry because there's a consumer demand for it, but we don't have any turkey producers very close to us. So our turkey producer is about 2 hours away, a 2-hour drive away. So for us, that's still, local, but it's not in our county.
Yeah, I think it's a important question. What is local? Because every local could be good and every local could be bad. So by definition, that something is local doesn't mean that it's good. And also, like, what is local? It could be, we had talked about this in our group, and we came to the conclusion that maybe we should have Sweden as a whole as a local definition, because
Yeah, and that's an interesting question because talking about principles and values and so on, I mean, one of the values is that you work close, and the principles that is that you work very close. It's not that they are just locally, as you mentioned, Casey, you have a very tight relation to those, and you also mentioned that, Chris, that is when it works the best. It's when you have a good relation and so on. So that is more or less a principle or a value also, because without it, it won't be Argus Farm Stop any longer, I guess, because you need that super tight relation. Otherwise, you don't know how they have produced this, why they do it, and you don't, yeah, you can't tell the stories. How do you relate to the stories of the farmers? Is it something that you tell the consumers, and then the ones that buy in the stores?
Yeah, that's really important to us. We consider the farmers part of our community, and we're part of their community. And so that is what sets us apart, is that direct connection between the consumer and the farmer. So if somebody comes in to shop in our store, they very well may see a farmer delivering. And so they might be buying their eggs, and the farmer that's delivering the eggs is standing there, and then they can make that connection themselves. All of the signage in our stores, every sign for every product has the name of the farm, their logo, like what city they're located in, any information they want to share on their sign. So there is every item is linked to a specific farm. We use our social media to highlight our farmers on, just to make people aware, like, this is Lucas Dickerson, and these are his kids, and he grows these chickens, or whatever. So we try to highlight those farmer connections. And I think that's really what sets us apart, is that and again, why that consignment piece is important to us, it maintains that direct connection between the consumer and the farmer. And when they come in, they will see that when our farmers deliver, we welcome them to our store. We give them a free coffee. Like, they tend to not just drop and go. Some of them do, but many of them stick around for a few minutes and they drink a coffee and they'll talk to who's in the store. So there's definitely a connection there that you'd never get. If you go to a big box grocery store, the people are delivering, even if they're local, they're delivering in the back door. They're never out in the store where the consumers are. So there's just a disconnect there, and that's not the environment we provide.
Yeah. Also, this makes me think about, this opens up for transparency with the producers, especially, and that in sense makes it more for the consumers to make more known what they choose to buy. The transparency gets highlighted at the situations that you got in your store, which to sort from what's good and what's bad is a really great way to, because you don't know if you go to a big wholesale, or you don't even know exactly where it's produced, so you don't even know if it's good or bad. So
yeah. Yeah, we've had that experience where we've had consumers say if they have a bad experience with one of our products and they come in and they say, the spinach that I bought was so filthy and like covered in mud and it was just such a pain to wash. I'm not going to buy this again. We can go to that producer and we do. Like we then share that directly to the farmer because we have that relationship and we say, "Hey, like, if you just like wash your spinach a little bit better in your wash and pack, like you're going to sell a lot more spinach." And then we see the farmers make those changes. So we can directly relay those consumer feedback on the products to the farmers. And we have seen over the years like numerous changes take place based on that feedback.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's something, if you're proud of your product, that's something that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And this open up these that you can improve your products and through you, like you handle the customers, they tell you, and you forward it to producers. And sometimes they can even tell them themselves if you're their delivery. So
Yeah.
I think this could be one of the success factors. I believe that the storytelling itself is a important issue when you come to the local. I mean, people people you feel close to, and so on. But I'm also thinking of, you mentioned in the beginning here, you have a very clear mission and vision. And couldn't you just tell us a little bit about what that is and how you have worked it through and how you relate to it today and so on? I believe that this could also be something, maybe, I don't know, but so far we have had at least 2, 3 things that I think is design criteria more or less to get it working, and maybe some of them that people think of is not that important. For instance, organization form and so on, that could be different, I guess. But what about the mission?
Yeah, so again, our mission is simple. It's simply to grow our local food economy. We, the folks that started Argus, Bill and Kathy, they they were looking for kind of a career change and to do something different and something that was impactful, something food related. And they recognized the need to increase market outlets for farmers because farms in the United States, I'm sure this is the same in Sweden, they're closing, they're going out of business. It's a really hard business. The average age of the farmer in the United States is 58. That's the average. So I think our statistic that we use is over the next 15 to 20 years, something like 40% of farmland in the United States will transition ownership. And most of that will probably no longer be farmland. Once it stops being farmland, it is almost never returns back to being farmland. So we're kind of in this like crisis mode right now where we need to preserve our small farms or they're not going to be around anymore. And so that mission to support the local food economy is where that sort of came from, a desire to save our local farms. And over 10 years, we have seen this, our county, Washtenaw County, had a strong, relative to many other communities, we had a strong food system 10 years ago, but it has only exponentially grown in the time Argus has been open. The county, we're the number 1 county in the state of Michigan for direct to consumer sales from farmers. So that direct purchase from a consumer directly from our farmer. And we're number 10 in the entire country in terms of counties in the entire United States. And not all of that is from Argus, but certainly we're a part of that. And I think that there's just this like great return, sort of like, I don't know, we have a saying here, rising tides raise all ships. So sort of as we strengthen this community around encouraging people to buy locally, whether they're doing it from Argus or they're doing it straight from a farm or they're doing to the farmer's market or somewhere else, it just all feeds itself and we're growing this community and we're improving our local food economy. And we have seen that just, having been around for 10 years with Argus and seeing the changes in some of these farmers, it's just been really tremendous to see. And so that mission, people always ask, you ask, I think, or no, you asked about selling to restaurants. We often ask people, or people often ask us about opening a commercial kitchen. So that's something here where you have a licensed kitchen where people then can create prepared foods in your store to sell. We don't have one. Many farm stops do, but we don't. And so that's like a way, it would be in mission. It would be in mission to support our local food economy to have to have a commercial kitchen. We choose not to do it because we don't have anybody on staff that wants to do it. But kind of it's an example of a decision making. Anytime we have a decision come up front of us, do we want to do X? We ask, does this meet our mission of growing our local food economy? Yes or no? And if it does, then we'll explore it further. If it doesn't, then we don't even consider it. And I think, yeah, I guess that's all I'll say about that right now.
Yeah, what you mentioned about the farmers getting older, I was actually when I heard about this in the course, I checked it out how it was in Sweden, and it was pretty much exactly the same. So about facing the same problems, it's like it's there on the paper, like exactly. I think it was like the exact same years as well, the same statistics.
Mhm.
So
I was also thinking of when you onboard new farmers, how much of the mission do they need to onboard when onboarding Argos FarmStop? Is it yeah, what is the level of their way of working, of their values and so on? Have you worked on that, or is it if they want to sell, then it's enough?
Yeah, I mean, I guess any local farmer or any small farmer that wants to sell with us is already going to be sort of part of the mission. I mean, why would a local farmer not want to support the local food economy? Like they're already doing that by existing and farming. We do have an application process. We ask questions around their growing practices. We want to know, what kind of growing practices they use. And we have some conditions that we won't generally bring on a producer if they're growing in a very conventional manner where they're using a ton of fertilizer inputs and they're spraying everything just to spray. We won't bring on somebody that's using those practices. But we do, have a conversation and also like this is somebody we're going to be working with regularly. We want to meet them and talk to them and see if that's somebody we want to work with. By and large, though, our producers are fantastic and we haven't really had any issues there.
What I was thinking of is even if you want to, you can say that who don't want to grow the local food economy and food market and so on. Yeah, but I've also seen the fear of competition because you have maybe to leave that behind you to be able to work in such a context where you work together and gain together and create value together. That was why I asked the question because I have met at least people and organizations that are struggling with togetherness or helping out others in case it could be seen as a problem with the competition and so on. And I would say you have to leave that behind, that idea. I don't know what your experience of that is.
Yeah, we haven't really seen a lot of, I don't want to say it, we don't have producers that are competitive with each other. I don't want to speak for them, but it's not something I have really observed. I would say that if a producer, I guess I'll have an anecdote. So I have heard from several people over the years that, so Michigan is the second most agriculturally diverse state in the country behind California. California is where the vast majority of our food is grown. And I have heard from a number of people that the local food scene in California is very cutthroat and very competitive. And if you're at a farmer's market and you're talking to a farmer about their thing, another farmer will come over and like grab your arm and pull you down to their table. And it is very competitive in that way. We don't really experience that here. I can't say why we do or don't. But I would say if a producer were feeling that way, I would just think that it's on them to produce the best product they can and the consumer can make their choice. But it's not something we've had to really deal with ourselves at Argus.
Okay, good to hear. Good to hear. Talking about success factors for a while, we have elaborated a little bit about organization form. We have elaborated a little about how do you define your mission. We have elaborated a little bit about how you didn't mention scale, but that was actually what happened. You came from one site, and now you're on three. Yeah, we can call it sites or three markets, and maybe that's one of my next questions is how large does it have to be, or how small can it be to be what have you seen, for instance, within the farm stop concept?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely scalable. When Argus was started, the vision was just to start one farm stop. It was not to expand into 3 locations and 70 employees. That definitely wasn't the vision. But there was consumer demand for it, and just, you know, the second location that opened up, the space itself was just very attractive. It was actually the first place we wanted to open, and it wasn't available at the time. So when the second location opened in a different neighborhood in Ann Arbor, felt like a good decision at the time because we were doing so well with our first space. And we had a staff member who's currently our general manager, Laura, who was ready for a new project, and she was enthusiastic to open a new store. So they, you know, she pulled that off, and it's been a huge success. The third location kind of is just 2 doors down from that second location. It was an expansion during COVID. During the pandemic, we started growing our online grocery sales and a subscription produce box program. And that takes a lot of physical space. And so we needed more physical space for that. And so because we expanded that into a new space, it gave us another area to have a second market. So yeah, it wasn't the initial vision, but it's just a sort of happened organically. I absolutely do not foresee us growing any more beyond what we already have. We know of, like, I don't know, 18-ish farm stops around the country. And I'm using that term farm stops. They don't all call themselves farm stops, but just using that term to describe people that are retailing local food on a consignment model. We know of about 18 of them, and we are definitely the largest in terms of sales, and I think in terms of physical footprint, and like the volume of food that we sell. But there are some that are very small. I don't know with sales numbers necessarily, but, you know, are just a very, very much smaller than than we are, that are still successful and have been around for a long time. So it's definitely scalable. Any farm stop has to reflect its community. And so if you're in a small rural space and you have a smaller number of producers to draw from, you're just going to be inherently smaller, but that doesn't mean you're not successful. You know, I think anybody, if you're able to keep the lights on and support your farmers and however you can, then you're successful.
Kizzy, since you've been growing, have you felt that it's been harder for your mission, or has only been better for the mission?
No, I feel like we've done a very good job with that. You know, we still sell things that are exclusively local. Our sales numbers our payouts back to our producers are just growing and growing and growing. So, you know, I think as we grow, there are more administrative challenges, I guess, but I feel like we've done a great job sticking to our mission.
I was also thinking here, you spoke about that you do some kind of analysis of new applications and so on. And how much do you rely on your gut feeling?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I think we have a very, very good team of people who started Argus and who many of whom are still with Argus. And we communicate well together. I think we all have pretty good instincts with things. And yeah, there are a lot of on the fly based on your gut feeling decisions made, and they've tended to always work out for us. Yeah, and I think that's just true with any small business, right? It's not inherent to farm stops or local food even. It's just you have to trust yourselves, trust yourself. And hopefully you have a team. Hopefully, I think any small business, whether you're a farm stop or not, you have to have you're most successful when you have a team of people that you trust and respect, and to bring different perspectives to your decision making. I think that's critical.
Now we have spoken about Argus for a while, and I mean, this is what you live in a day-to-day life, and I'm also thinking of right now when we are reflecting, if you would give 2, maximum 3 advices to any local food system that want to set up some kind of a hub or whatever it is, what
Mhm.
would that be?
Mm.
Use 1, 2, and a maximum 3.
Um,
You can choose
I
4.
think,
What would happen?
no, I think I can think of a few, but I guess be honest with yourself about your local food system, and kind of do an honest assessment of what is available and what areas you can hope to grow it or how you can best support it. And kind of think about it as a holistic thing that needs supporting and not doing it from a place of ego or a place of your personal success, but see, okay, I want to support this food system. What does the food system look like really that I want to support, and how do I support that? And then I think I would double down on what I just said about having a team to do that. You can't do this as an individual. You need a team to collectively to work through these problems, and to reflect your community, because this is ultimately a community endeavor and a community effort. And so the more people you can bring into your decision making, I think is the best.
Mm. Anything else, Chris, you want to elaborate on?
No, but I do have a question for Casey. How often do you visit these farms? Since you have 200 farmers, right?
Yeah.
How often do you visit these farms, or do you have a team that goes visit them, or would you?
Yeah, so that's something we're trying to do more often. So we have a um, annual meeting in the winter, in the off season. We have an annual meeting with our biggest, like our, I don't know how many, top 50-ish, I don't know how many the number is, the biggest producers that sell through us, to talk through their previous year sales, help them with their planning, holes we might see, like, hey, we're running out of garlic. Can you grow more garlic? Or, whatever the thing we need more of, to talk through that planning piece. And then we do try to tour, like we take our staff on tours every year. We're actually kind of revisiting that this year. We have a different staff member leading that tour plan, so we want to visit more farms with our staff. I will say that our farmers market in Ann Arbor, who we work very closely with and have a really good relationship with, they have a robust site visit as part of their programming, where they go to all these farms to verify that they are doing the things they say they're doing. And so we kind of rely on that too, to say, like, okay, if the farmers market, if Stephanie has gone and visited X farm and has confirmed that this is their cauliflower, they're not importing it, what have you, and they're growing the way that they say they're growing, we kind of can rely on that as a data point as well when we're making decisions. But we definitely want to get more visits out to the actual farms, for sure, is something we want to do a better job of. It was easier when we were a smaller staff with fewer farms, but as we've grown, this has become more of a challenge.
I think I'm also thinking of um, rounding this conversation up, but also sending you something, because you have given us a lot of thoughts and ideas and so on. And what I'm thinking of then is that a lot of organizations that I've met, they are, I don't know how to say, but maybe this is the reason why you're here. But that is, how can we be curious in the day to day? I mean, you have a setup today that works right now, but we never know what will happen tomorrow. And maybe you have a way of working on developing new ideas or developing new and engage. You said before, I really love that when you said that it's not only having a team, it's also a community base, and also having a decision base that is yeah, making people able to engage. And that is, how have you talked about what can change and what can't change? And that's actually something I would like to give back. And you mentioned that you have an organizational form, you have a set of a mission, you have a, how can that also evolve? I mean, or are there static, I'm not saying that's wrong or bad or good or great or anything like that. It's just that, sending back to you, the ability to always develop one step further with, yeah. And if there is like static things that maybe that's fine also, of course, but maybe try to see if we can find new ways even in what is already present. And that's just something I was thinking of when I meet with organization. That very often I hear them having a story, and that story goes in one direction, and that's great direction maybe. But what happens if we look at it a little bit different and so on? So that's just something I want to give back. I believe that's maybe you're already doing it. I don't know, but it's just something
I feel like we just sort of like go with the flow, and
Mm.
we always again hold that mission very closely. I don't see that changing for sure, that mission changing, but we're always looking for new ways to support that mission. So if anything, anyone has a new idea, that we're definitely open to hearing it if it's within mission.
Yeah.
I can think of one way that they do it is by these courses they teach and learn others to do the same, which obviously works for them. So why shouldn't it work for someone else? Yeah, that's one of the things that they do. They spread the knowledge, and they're very open and very, very friendly to actually get this idea out. So they're not holding it to themselves, but they would like to share it. And yeah.
Yeah, and that's the idea with this conversation concept. It's to find what works and how can we learn from each other. What works at one place maybe doesn't on another, and just to have a learning conversation. So we will take the best of what we have got from you today, Casey, and put that into some kind of a big pot and see what happens if we get a global hub for local food systems. That will be an interesting theme to have with us. So thank you very much for taking your time and also to engage with us. I mean, we're on the other side of the globe, and you're willing to share your knowledge and your experiences. And thank you very much. I think that's very beautiful. And thank you. And
Thank you, both of you. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for inviting me.
yeah. And Chris, something else we want to say before we end the stream and so
on? No, check Argus out. They're really cool. And if you're interested in starting something similar, I take the course and you can learn something, and then you can build something on your own from that.
And Casey, something else you want to say before we end the stream?
No, I don't think so. It's been great.
If anyone wants to come in contact with you, how do they do that?
Oh yeah, that's a good. Yeah. So again, our business is Argus Farm Stop. It's argusfarmstop.com. And you can email me at training, training, at argusfarmstop.com with any questions you have. I'd love to hear about your ideas.
Okay, thank you for coming and having this dialogue with us, Casey and Chris. We will probably have maybe one more this weekend. We don't know yet, but we're looking for a new spot maybe. And to all of you who have listened in, please contact either me, Chris, or Casey, and in case you want to elaborate more on local food systems. And thank you very much for